During the 3+ years of the war, soldiers and their armies have tried virtually everything to win this war, to no avail. But what if you do the opposite? What if you tried to end it by losing? What if you tried treason? I'm Indy Nidell. Welcome to the Great War. Last week, we saw revolt in the Russian Baltic Fleet, Russian soldiers in France, and even Egyptian laborers in France. There was action on the Libyan front, and the Battle of Passchendaele flared to life again with a British victory that seemed to have cracked the German elastic defense system. Those British attacks back on the 20th had secured most of their objectives and had held them, doing enormous damage to the German Eingreif reserves, who counterattacked using stormtroop methods in the process. British General Sir Herbert Plumer's planning had done what was seemingly impossible, turning the German defense-in-depth system into a disadvantage, advancing just small distances before digging in, instead of trying for a breakthrough. Now, the further the Eingreiftruppen advanced, the more disorganized they grew and the less effective they were. British Prime Minister David Lloyd George visited the front this week to find a mood of exaltation. British Army Commander-in-Chief Sir Douglas Haig was described as radiant. Plumer brought his artillery forward during the week, and on the 26th launched what is known as the Battle of Polygon Wood. His Second Army would again attack, with 1st Anzac trying to take all of Polygon Wood and Zonnebeke, while the flanks maintained the line of advance. There was a withering artillery barrage, and then the infantry attacked at 5:50 a.m. on a front of around 6 kilometers. They didn't have much problem reaching their objectives, though it wasn't so easy on the flanks, especially to the south, where the Germans had launched a preemptive attack the day before. The fighting was bitter, as you may imagine, and the second phase, the German counterattack, soon began. Thing is, British and French aircraft had been flying over the battlefield all day, strafing and bombing for all they were worth, and they noticed the signs of the reserves moving in. They made no progress against artillery and aircraft, though, and took huge casualties. The British dug in after advancing about 800 meters. Polygon Wood was a success, but the casualties were heavy. The British took over 15,000 casualties that day on a shorter front and with fewer divisions attacking than last week, so it was proportionally greater. The Germans looked on basically helplessly as the British dug in, having taken more German strongpoints. What could they do in future to prevent ever more of their defenses from falling into British hands in small bites? Moreover, German Quartermaster General Erich Ludendorff wrote of the 26th, "A day of heavy fighting, accompanied by every circumstance that could cause us loss. We might be able to stand the loss of ground, but the reduction of our fighting strength was again all the heavier." He was seriously worried by now. And he had lost one of the great German aces this week, too. On the 23rd came one of the most famous aerial dogfights of the war, when German Werner Voss, with 47 confirmed kills, was ambushed by a patrol of SE-5s. The triplane was still circling round the middle of 6 SE-5s. At one point, I noted the triplane in the apex of a cone of tracer bullets from at least 5 machines simultaneously, and each machine had 2 guns. By choosing to stand and fight, Foss showed an extraordinary level of dedication and bravery. But once he did, the outcome was inevitable. After about 10 minutes of frantic air combat, when most of the SE-5s received bullet damage, Foss's plane was hit and it went down in a steep dive, hitting the ground and disappearing into 1,000 fragments. And something I haven't had time to mention happened recently on the Italian front. In the Suguna Valley, there had been fighting in 1915 and 1916 until the front stabilized near Carzano. It was actually kind of strategically important, but had been quiet for over a year. So in July, an Austro-Hungarian soldier had slipped through the wire there and presented himself to the Italians. He had a sealed envelope and said he came to parley. The envelope contained plans of the Austrian defenses in the region and a note signed Paulino that said he wanted to help the Italians. Major Cesare Finzi was the Italian head of information there, and his data confirmed that the maps were authentic. Eventually, a meeting with Paulino was arranged. Paulino turned out to be Ljudevit Pivko, a Slovene lieutenant, and he was a member of a sort of secret society within his army called the Sokol. It was a Slavic nationalist society, and their goal was for Italy to win the war. The treasonous Pivko pointed out that an Italian breakthrough in the Suguna Valley would take Trento and, combined with an Italian attack from the west, cut the Trentino salient in half. He thought some of his officers would support him, as well as the Serbs, though not the Bosnian Muslims or the Croats. Finzi says that if Pivko can get support and feed him information, maybe they can do something. Finzi was fairly unusual among Italian officers in that he wanted to see the Austro-Hungarian Empire destroyed, not just defeated. Pivko did what he said he would, and with a network of 52 contacts by August, outlined his plan to open the front at Carzano. The Italians would attack with 30 or 40,000 men, and if they could overrun the city before reinforcements arrive, they'll have the lower Trentino. Finzi is worried, though, that word will get out if he goes to high command through the normal channels, so he tries to get the ear of Army Chief of Staff Luigi Cadorna. Cadorna, however, is busy planning the offensive that just ended last week, so Finzi goes to his sector commander, General Etna, instead. Thing is, Austria has anticipated Cadorna's offensive and has taken away forces from the Tyrol to prepare for that. And Pivko says this is now a golden opportunity. Etna, however, doesn't really take the idea seriously and only thinks of a small local attack. Pivko by now has a detailed plan for the Italian attack involving timelines, troop strength, how to sabotage the Austrian phone lines and barbed wire, everything. The loyal Austrian troops are even going to be drugged with opiates in their brandy, and the forward troops chloroformed, right? Finzi finally gets Cadorna's ear early in September, but Cadorna takes Etna's recommendation for a limited sortie along the Suguna Valley without the concurrent attack from the west, frustrating Finzi. Meanwhile, Pivko's plot is denounced by a Czech acquaintance, but the authorities end up arresting the accuser for lying. Austrian Emperor Karl even said to Pivko in person shortly afterwards, "I regret that somebody wished to cast a shadow over one of my most valiant officers." On September 15th, Pivko brings news that his battalion will soon be transferred, so the Italians need to attack now. Finzi says it'll happen within 2 days, and Brigadier Zincone, in command of the troops, agrees to this. The Italians have 7 well-equipped army corps, a huge advantage. The Austrian side of the plan goes off like clockwork, and the road across no man's land is open for the taking. However, the Italian troops don't trust their Austrian guides, and though the advanced troops take Carzano, the main force hasn't arrived, and the road is deserted. It turns out that Zincone has sent his men single file along a twisting lateral trench instead of up the undefended road. As dawn approached, the main Italian thrust still had not arrived. In fact, Zincone suspends the operation, calls back his men, and abandons the forward troops and their guides. Pivko and 300 Bosnians are taken prisoner by the Italians, and the forward troops surrender to the Austrians. There is an inquiry into the matter, and Etna and Zincone are relieved of command. The whole thing was a fiasco, and Cadorna even said long after the war that nothing during the whole war had angered him as much as Carzano, and he had good reason to be angry for what could have been a decisive breakthrough, and a huge morale boost instead became a complete debacle because of incompetence within the high command structure of the Italian army. And far to the east, as the week ends, British forces defeat the Ottomans on the Euphrates River near Ramadiya, capturing the Ottoman commander, 3,455 prisoners, and 13 big guns. So, all in all, a good week for the British in the Far East and the West, and a rough week for the Germans. And a failed attempt to give Italy an advantage by treason against Austria-Hungary, though that actually was last week. Something else happened this week. Well, today, now in 2017, today is September 28th, which means that it's my birthday. And actually, today, when this episode comes out, is my 50th birthday, which means I am exactly half as old as the events I'm talking about. When you think about it like that, this stuff doesn't really happen all that long ago at all. So let's hope we learned something. And happy birthday to me. Hey. All right. Hey, if you want to learn more about Luigi Cadorna, one of the secret stars of our show, you can click right here for our bio special about him. Our Patreon supporter of the week is Bernd Schumacher. Thank you for your support on Patreon. We could not do this show without you. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.